everybody, it's Jen from the Britical Saiyans here, and today I'm going to be showing you King Cold deck profile. So King Cold is quite a worthy leader, but we'll just get into it. So to start with, its opponent is when you activate a field card skill of a green extra card from the original energy cost of 2 in your hand, you reduce the cost by 1. So any fields become a 1 cost basically. When it's placed in your leader area, you get King Cold's Dynasty, which is this card. And its other auto is once per turn, when you activate a green extra card with an original energy cost 2 and the field skill, you add up to 1 card from your life to your hand and you draw a card. So it just lets you have a bit of sin, like getting something from playing extra cards out. And on 4 lists you get 2 of your energy back, which is really useful. And we go into this side. So the permanent stays the same. The auto is basically the same. Once per turn, when you play a field cost 2, you draw a card, so you don't have to take a life this time. And its active battle is once per turn. You can choose a green field card, place it in your drop area, and it gains 10k power for the battle. So it gives them a nice little bit of aggression, and you still have a bit of draw power from playing your fields out. To start with, I'll go with the Unison card, which is just 4 copies of King Vegeta Umbral Invader. I'll just quickly, here we go. So specified cost 2, 15k. He's got +1 active main. Choose up to 1 mono green extra cards with an energy cost 2 or less and a field skill in your hand and activate it. -1 active main. Your opponent chooses 1 card, 1 of their battle cards with an energy cost 5 or less and KOs it. And then you've got active battle -3. This card gains triple strike and +5k for each extra card in your battle area with the field skill for the turn. So the max potential, because of how many different ones there are in this deck alone. So I have 5 different ones here, so we can gain +25k, which puts them on 40k with triple strike, which is really good. But the main use out of him is obviously your +1, and you can just play a field without having to use your energy, but you still gain the benefits of your leader skill. So next, we're going to the extra cards, which there is a fixed stack of. And to start with, we'll just go straight into King Cold's Dynasty. So it's got barrier and field. So if your lead is a green King Cold BR, you can place any number of green field cards with that are mono green that cost 2. However, you cannot place the same card as one you have on the field. So if you have a new rule in play, you can't place one from your hand without getting rid of the original one. And that's basically the entire card, because like that second part is a different skill, but this first one means that you can play as many fields as you like without having to be like, oh well, I need to get rid of this one before I play a new one, then get rid of that one before I play a new one. It's just King Cold's Dynasty lets you play as many as you want, as long as you play different ones each time and you get rid of the first one before you place another copy of it. Otherwise the deck wouldn't function, simply put. So, going into the rest of them, we've got 3 copies of a new ruler. So, obviously it's got field. When this card is placed in battle area, add up to 1 card from your life to your hand. Then look up to 3 cards from the top of your deck. Add up to 1 mono green card amongst your hand, then put the rest on bottom in any order. So you do have to reveal what you add just to prove it's mono green. And then when this card is placed in drop area from battle area by one of your skills, you draw a card and then discard a card. So all the fields tend to have an ability of when they're placed in the drop area, just so that you can use your effects and still gain something from them. Next we got 3 copies of Anticipated Onslaught. So field, first auto is if the leader is a green King Cold BR card, when this card is placed in your battle area, you draw 1, Then you choose up to one mono green freezer clan or freezer army card, an edge cost of 2 or less, in your hand and play it. So it just means that you can pay 1 to get a free card out, and there is quite a large selection because you've got anything that's freezer clan and freezer army as long as it's green. And then this one doesn't have an ability when it's placed in drop area. Instead, once per turn, when a green X card with the field skill in your battle other than this card is placed in the nearest drop area by one of your skills, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an edge cost of 2 or less and KO it. So what's great about Anticipated Onslaught is basically once you play a copy of it, you don't need to play another unless you blow it up for whatever reason to get its on-play skill off. Otherwise, you place one of these and it can basically sit there throughout the game, whilst the other ones can be discard fodder / energy fodder. Next we have 3 copies of Terrified Realization. So obviously it's a field card. Permanent, if you have 4 more X cards in your battle area with the field skill, your green Freezer Clan battle cards gain 5k power during your turn. So it just gives you a bit of aggression for all the Freezer Clan cards. And then when it's placed in your battle area, you add up to 1 card from your left to your hand and draw a card. So when it's placed, you basically just do this Unawakened skill. Which is really nice because you can trigger it twice if you're unawakened. And then the final of the fields, again, 3 copies of Unstoppable Invasion. So like I said, it's field. Its first auto is if you lose a Green King Cold BR, when this card is placed in battle area, add up to 1 card from your life to your hand, then one of your lead cards gains 10k power and double strike for the turn. So it's very useful in that you can give your leader 10k and double strike, and then you could also just be like, well, I'm going to pop this with the leader's effect, give him another 10k, thus making a 35 double striker. And secondary also is when this card in your battle is placed in your owner's drop by one of those skills, choose up to one of your opponent's unison cards and remove a marker from it. So it's very useful in the fact that it can just get rid of a marker from a unison. So it means you could just swing a double strike at your opponent's unison and get rid of 3 markers, or just take a marker from it anyway, and that might kill it or cripple it. So very useful. And the last extra card in the deck is 3 copies of Royal Supremacy. So it's counter attack, you negate the attack, then choose any number of your opponent's battle cards whose energy costs total up to 3 or less and KO them. So it just lets you wipe the balls of the little things. And then what's really good about this card is its permanent skill of if you have 3 or more green extra cards with the field skill in your battle area, you can activate this card's counter skill without paying its cost. And you'll always have 1 to begin with. So as long as you pay 2 more fields, this becomes a free negate that pops stuff on your opponent's board. Hence the 3 copies, because it's kind of your primary negate. So anyway guys, on to the battle cards. We have 4 copies of Berry Blue Freezer's Advisor. So it's a 1-drop 4k. It's got auto. When this card is played, you look up to 7 cards from the top of your deck. You add up to 1 green unison card with a specified cost of 2, or up to 1 green extra card with the field skill to your hand and shuffle your deck. So unlike most searchers, it doesn't get a battle card, it gains a field instead, but it does also give you a unison card. And its active main is once per turn, you pay 1 green. If your leader is King Cold BR, you activate 1 mono green extra card with energy cost of 2 or less, energy cost of 2 and field skill from a drop area. So it means that if you place any of your fields in the drop, you can just be like, well, I'll pay 1 and play it. Get my leader's auto off if I haven't done it already, get other abilities off, and then go from there. So it means you have like full recycling of your fields. Hence the 4 Berry Blue, because it's very useful. And next in our 1-drops, we have 4 copies of Freezer Demolisher of Planet Vegeta. So he's got 4k power, he's got 2 autos. First one being on place you draw a card, second one being you pay 2 green, you choose a green extra card with field in your battle area and drop it. So like pick one of the field cards, place it in the drop. When this card is played, choose all of your opponent's battle cards and KO them, and this card gains 16k power and double strike until the end of your opponent's next turn. So essentially, either you pay 1 to just draw a card, or on place you pay 3 energy to kill their battle cards, draw a card, give them 16k and double strike. And you pop a field, which means you trigger all those effects as well. So it's just a nice pressure unit. Next we got our 2-drops. And to start with, we've got 3 copies of Cooler Vicious Ambush. So it's got critical, 15k, and auto, you pay 1 green if your leader is green. When you activate an extra card, or when you activate a green extra card, play this card from your hand, and you can't play copies for the turn. So you don't necessarily have to play a field card to activate this. You could just be like, well, I'll play a negate and play Cooler, or play a counterplay and play Cooler. But what's great about it is that for 1 energy you get 15k critical. So can't really argue with that. It's just a nice easy play pressure. So for the super combos of the deck, we've got 2 of Paragus and 2 Great Saiyan. Which might seem a bit weird, but there's a reason. So, Great Saiyan, if you're on 4 or less, when you come with this card and all of your energy is green, you put a card to the bottom of the deck and draw 2. Paragus, if you're on 4 or less and it's green, you draw 2 and then send a card from your hand to the warp. So the reason I've done a 2-2 split on these is that the Great Saiyan is useful in the fact that you can draw 2 and put 1 back in your deck just to move it out of the way. The Paragus, however, I put in because sparking ones don't really matter in this deck. Neither does just normal. Well, obviously you don't use a normal, just draw a card. Paragus is good though, because say you draw 2 cards and you end up with 1 V's in your hand and you need combat power and you've got 1 in play, you could just get rid of a field from your hand. That's not going to do anything. Or if your opponent's killed your unison off and you draw your last copy and you know there's no point trying to play the unison out, you could just send that off. So it's a way of getting rid of cards that aren't really useful to you or that aren't going to give you much combo power, because obviously you need combo. So, and next there is 3 copies of Freezer Terrifying Transformation. Again, this is just a personal tech. So it's got 15k. Its auto is when this card is removed from the battle by an opponent's skill, you draw 2 cards, which is just handy. And its active main is you pay 1 green, you choose to 1 freeze card in your hand or drop area with an energy cost of 4 and play it on top of this card in active mode. So the only target in this deck is this guy, but the reason I put it in is that with is that anticipated onslaught? I need to remember. I'm pretty sure, yeah. So with anticipated onslaught, you could play this guy out for free because you've already used the field to play him out. Then, if you have the 4-drop in your hand or your drop area, you could be like, well, I'll swing this for 15, then I'll pay 1 and place it on top. So instead of paying his cost of 2 or 3 or 4, you could literally just pay 1, bring him out. Quick and easy. End effect to run it, plus with the Terrified Realization, he can just be a 20k beat stick. And if your opponent decides to pop it with a skill, you can draw 2 cards. So, for me it just seemed like a nice bit of utility. For our 3 drops, we just have the 3 copies of King Cold Supreme Ruler. So, counter attack, you negate and play this card. He's got the opponent of you reduce the cost of this card in your hand by 1 for each green extra card in your battle area. So he'll always be a 2 cost thanks to this, but if you have another field, he then just becomes a 1 cost. And then when this card is played, your opponent can't attack leader cards for the turn unless they choose one card in their hand and discard it each time. So if your opponent's going to throw a heavy bit of aggression at your leader, you can just go, okay, well, pay the cost, negate, play this out, and now every time you want to attack me, you have to ditch card. Have fun. Well, it doesn't help if you have a unison play, because then they just target that. Cheers, Matt. I enjoy it so much.
Well, you just keep playing it at the wrong times.
That is usually the case, yes. I get that at the worst times, or it's like the only negate in my hand, so I'm like, well, king, cold. But anyway, moving on to the 4-drops now. We have 3 copies of Cooler Effortless Strike. So he's counterplay, play this card, and if the battle card being played has an energy cost of 4 or less, it's placed in the energy drop here instead of being played. So, essentially a preemptive strike that you can play onto the field. Its permanent is during your opponent's turn, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1 for each green extra card in your battle and drop area. Thus making Cool like generically useful because you can just go in any green deck. But obviously the plus side of this green deck is that you have them on your field as well. And then his auto is when this card is played, if your opponent has 8 more cards in their hand, they choose 1 card and discard it. So if they've been building up hand, you can make them ditch card. And then you've got yourself a nice 15k beat stick that sent another card of theirs to the drop area. So, can't really argue with that. And our next 4-drop is, like I showed you earlier, 3 copies of Freezer Revived and Reviled. So he's got 20k dual attack and blocker. Permanent, you reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1 for every 2 green extra cards in your battle area and drop area. So having it in drop area really helps because it's 1 for every 2 cards. So obviously if you got the full amount out, he becomes 2 cost. As auto is once per turn, you choose 1 green extra card in your battle area with an energy cost of 2 or less and the field skill and place it in your drop area. When he activates blocker, you switch him to active mode. So it just means you can go attack, restand, during your opponent's turn, block, skill, get back to block again. So it's just very useful and it's a nice pressure unit because dual attack blocker. Next we got our 5-drops for the deck, and I'm going to say this now, I have only 1 copy of this card, hence I run 1. If you have more, obviously run more. I don't, so I can't. But yes, we have 1 copy of Charismatic Villain. So 5 cost 10k power, counterplay, can't activate counterplay cards above cards for the turn, plays card from your hand. Permanent, if you have a green unison card in play with 2 or more marks on it, you don't have to pay the cost for this counterplay skill. And then also is when this card is played, you choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 7 or less and KOs. So yes, very good. Comes out nice and easy, pops a huge amount of things, but I only own 1 copy, so I run 1 copy. And finally, the last cards of the deck, we have 3 copies of Golden Freezer, Pinnacle of the Clan. So he's got Deflect, Double Strike, 25k power. His permanent is the same as the 4-cost Freezer, and that you reduce his cost by 1 for every 2 green extra cards in battle and drop area. And then he has active main once per turn. Choose 1 green extra card with an energy cost of 2 or less and a field skill in your battle area and place it in the drop. Choose up to 1 card in your opponent's hand and up to 1 of their battle cards, ignoring barrier, place them in their owner's drop and switches to active mode. So he can swing twice for 25 and double strike, he can pop a opponent's card, make them discard card, and destroy a field for you to activate your effects and yada yada. The entire point of the deck is to just play fields, blow them up, play a new one, blow it up, and just go back and forth doing that. So, not much else to say. So, thank you very much for watching. Leave any thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!